You ready to do this, Steve?
Let's do it, Spence. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I am Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot, as always, is Steve Madura.
Hola, buenos dias.
We're two best friends that, despite being fathers and husbands, we refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 38. We release every Thursday morning on iTunes, Google Music, and Stitcher, and we have a fun time doing it.
Yeah, man.
How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good, but my Spanish is not so good. My wife actually says that my Spanish is muy feo, which means ugly.
My Spanish consists of whatever I need to order off the Taco Bell menu. So,
and mine is like
you got
whatever I learned from
me.
like the B character on like Simpsons. I'm like, ay, no es bueno. Like that's literally all I got. Like, wow, your diction's really good. I'm like, it's from the Simpsons.
Yeah, of all the languages like I could have learned, that would have been a good one to learn.
Yeah,
Chinese maybe,
Navajo,
Russian, something. Instead, I don't think I learned anything.
Barely got English down.
Me fail English? That's impossible.
That's right. Have you ever needed? I mean, have you gone abroad before? Have you ever needed to use a foreign language anywhere?
Nope. I haven't. I've wanted to go abroad, but the wife thought it would be a little weird with the other woman. So I mean,
I got you.
No, I've never left this country. Sadly,
golly.
I would like to. I would like to travel.
Yeah.
But that costs money, Steve.
That's
Real
what
money.
I hear. That's what I hear. Unless you go with like a traveling circus, and then they pay room and board.
Yeah, I mean, I could pull off the beard, but I don't know if the lady part so much. So,
oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, my birthday was yesterday.
Oh, by the way, happy friggin' birthday,
yeah,
birthday
man.
boy.
So I get home yesterday from a long and perilous journey, which I will talk about in a moment, and there's a bag sitting on my porch. It was flaming, so I put it out with my boot again, and dang it, poop again. No.
Don't put it out with your boot, Harold!
Don't tell me my business, devil woman! No, it was a package from my dear, sweet, lifelong bosom buddy, emphasis on the bosom, Spencer Stapleton. And I opened it up, and needless to say, it was a shirt. And it was a freaking awesome shirt. It was a Stranger Things shirt. I opened it up, my wife's like, what is that? I'm like, it's a Stranger Things shirt. She's like, is that like some kind of inside joke? I'm like, don't tell me my business, devil woman! So anyway, thank you so much, Spence. I wanted to publicly say freaking thank you. Awesome gift, man. A++.
I know how much you loved Stranger Things, and that was so much cheaper than a Fireball Island on eBay. So
You mean you cheap ass?
You don't lie. That thing is expensive on eBay. I've been keeping my eye on it just in case I can find a good deal sometime and really surprise you.
I actually found this guy at church who's a chemistry teacher, and he also like dabbles in like mechanical, I don't know, like engineering or some kind. He's like, I think I can make that. He's like, I got a plastic dye injector. I think I could probably make that thing. Hewn it out of plastic. I'm like, you think that would be cheaper than me just like your like 20 hours of laborious labor over this game of just maybe just finding it on eBay cheaper? Like, he's like, well, let me get back to you on it. I'm like, okay.
So here's the thing. I bet you could actually get this game, Fireball Island, because I've looked, but like, you may have to do it in pieces. Like, complete sets are going for like $250, $300.
Oh, yeah.
Like, crazy.
Yep.
But it's like, if you were to buy like the board game and some of the pieces, and then get like if you could get like the game board and the box, like there's other people that are just selling pieces for it.
Right.
And other people are just selling the manuals. Like you could piece one together
You know what I'd probably do my luck, though, is I'd be like, I finally got it. And like that week, my mom would be like, hey, honey, I looked under the bed and look what I found. I'm like,
right. There it is.
But anyway, so
well,
yes.
Anyway, happy birthday, man. I knew I was going to be able to be with you, and so I wanted to do something, and I know how much you've really loved Stranger Things, and I just wanted to get you a little something.
Man,
so happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate it very much from the bottom of my heart. It was a sweet thing to come home to, and yesterday was actually a really just a great day. My birthdays as you get older, they're not the streamers and the balloons, which we had those, but that's not what you look forward to. You look forward just to being together and having a day that you get to make all the decisions. Like as a dad, it's my wife kept having to remind my kids, it's Daddy's day. He gets to choose. I'm like, sweet. Anything I dang well, I never get to choose. So I went to church. It was Sunday, and I actually had to speak in church, which a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, you have to speak on your birthday, but I freaking love speaking. So I got to speak, and it was what we call Invitation Sunday, which is when we make invitations to people to come and attend church with us. So I got to give a talk, and it went really well, and then I got to give a lesson to the youth that I teach, the young men, and that was great. And then right after, we hopped in the car. Carrie had already packed a lunch and everything, like a picnic lunch and change of clothes. And we made the drive down to a place called Starved Rock, which has nothing to do with food, but is just the name of kind of an area south in Illinois that has kind of a lot of topography, some dells, rivers, waterfalls, and whatnot. But on our way, we actually stopped by our hometown, and I stopped by our congregation down there that Spencer and I grew up in, and got there about 10 minutes before, maybe 15 minutes before the church let out at the end of the third hour. And so we stopped and had a quick picnic at West School, right on Elm Street. Yeah. Under a tree, and then went to the church building and got out right then and there. And the reason I stopped by, and I know that Spencer probably wanted to talk a little bit about this as well, but we had a dear friend, a listener to the podcast, but a dear friend from our childhood, Jason Both, whose father passed away somewhat expectedly, but somewhat unexpectedly this week. And Spencer gave a great tribute. If anybody had seen it on Facebook, Jason actually, when I talked to him yesterday, was visibly moved by what Spencer had written. But his name was Glenn Both. He was an amazing man, and set me straight more than once or twice in my younger days. And it was funny because when I saw Glenn's wife in the hall at church, I came up to her and I gave her a big hug, and she was, she didn't expect to see me there, and so she gave me a big hug. She's like, we loved you, even though we wanted to shoot you a time or two. And that's the first thing this woman has said to me after not seeing me for, I don't know, 10, maybe 15 years.
Awesome.
I was like, I still got it.
So let me talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
So Jason, I mean, we've talked about Jason. Jason's written in. He's a super friend of the show here. But of course, we've known Jason since we were little kids.
Yeah.
And so he's a true, friend from years back, and a brother to us. And I've spent plenty of time over at the Both house with him and his younger brother Josh and older brothers and sisters, and I know the entire Both clan. And Glenn, his dad, was just literally one of the kindest, most generous people you would ever meet in the world. He just loved to laugh, and he loved to tease, and he loved to give you a hard time, which that's the kind of the family environment I grew up in. If my dad was teasing you and giving you a hard time, that was his way of saying I love you. And it was. And anyone who knew my dad knew that. And Glenn was a kindred spirit like that. And he just used to give me the hardest time and tease me. And he had this big, huge, infectious laugh.
Yep.
And you just wanted to be around it. When you'd come and you'd see Glenn after he hadn't seen you in a while, he'd always say, "Hey, kiddo." That was what he said every single time. And he was a scout leader, and he was a devoted servant to his family, to his church, to his friends. He was the first person that came and met us when we moved into Sycamore in 1988. And just, came over and sat down at our house. We didn't even have furniture yet in the house, and just sat down on the carpet with the family, and, talked to us and got to know us. And I grew up, with that man kind of in and out of my life over the years, and just really sad to see him go. I know that in the last few years, obviously, his health had been deteriorating, and it wasn't the same anymore health-wise. But, my heart goes out to the both family. It goes out to Jason and Josh and Andy and Sean
Sheila
and Mike
Penny
and Tim and Penny and Scott and all of them. I mean, and Bev, his wife, of course.
And of course, all the in-laws as well. They're sweet people.
Yeah, in-laws, grandkids, great-grandkids. But let me just tell you something like this about Jason. We've known Jason a long time. Jason called me today. So like he texted me really, really early morning. What was this? I think Thursday morning.
Right.
Texted me really, really early in the morning. It was like 5:30 maybe, and told me that his dad had passed. And and for me, like that hit me kind of really close to home because I did truly love Glenn. But like we kind of been talking and communicating throughout the weekend. Ask him how he's doing. What's going on. Is there anything I can do for him? What does he need? Such and such, right? So he calls me today. And like I love this guy because this is just Jason. Like he doesn't think of himself like he thinks of other people. He calls me up and says, "Hey, I'm at Ollie's here in Sycamore, and we're gonna get a whole bunch of custard, and we're going to pack it in dry ice to drive back home across country. What flavor do you want?" Because he knows I haven't had Ollie's in like almost 20 years now. And I love that little custard stand from back home. I mean, it's simply the best. And so I talked to him. He gave me a quick little screenshot to show me the flavor of the day and some of the pre-packed flavors they still had. And so I've got some custard on the way. And like he just buried his father on Saturday. Right. Just buried his father on Saturday, right? Like I know what that's like. I mean, I buried my father about 15 years ago. I know how hard of a weekend that was for me when we went through that. The last thing I was thinking about was like getting custard and, bringing it to a friend of mine that hadn't had custard in a long time. Like that just would have been beyond me. But that's just kind of who Jason is. And so, sweet phone call, great gesture. That's just who he is. But of course, we mourn the loss of a dear friend. But we know he's in a better place.
And one of the things one of the memories that I had of the both families, ever since I was a kid, that door was always open. And I don't mean just figuratively. I mean, literally, it was always open. Like I said that to Jason's mom, and she's like, "We never locked the door."
It's true.
And you could literally go in their house at any time. I mean, they had, 9 kids? 7? 8? There's lots of
them. Nine kids.
And so, I mean, you think about just living in a home with 9 kids, and they were, I want to say they were hellions, but they were, active, we'll say.
Active. That's a good word.
Yeah.
Active.
And, but it tempered, Glenn and Bev, they're just sweet people. Anyway, so.
It's true, though. Like, they wanted.
It was a true open door policy.
Kids. Yeah, they wanted their kids to be able to have their friends come over. And I remember Glenn telling me one time, he said, "You know what? I would rather have my kids' friends come over here and host and have lots of people in the house." He says, "Because then I always know what my kids are up to and what they're doing and who their friends are. And I get a chance to meet them. And, if they're hanging around people that, we think, could be a bad influence or, are shady individuals." He says, present company included.
Right, exactly.
He says, but he says, we get to meet everyone and, we get to kind of see things and we get to be a greater part of our children's lives that way. And it's true. I mean, there was not a time I could think of that I could go over to the house and just walk right in.
Yeah.
And they told me that repeatedly, because when I was younger, I'd always come over and knock, and they're like, "Stop knocking. No one's going to come answer. Just walk right in and, come find who you're looking for and go do what you're going to do." But if you were hungry, they had food for you.
Yeah.
If you needed, just a place to crash on a couch, They had a couch, they had a bed, they had a pillow and a blanket. You needed someone just to come and talk to. There was plenty of people in the house for that. It's it's just great family, good times, a lot of great memories.
The only other thing I do have to bring up before we move on, and I know we spent some time on this, but so Sheila Both, which is Jason's older sister, has kids. She and her husband Wes.
It's actually Sheila Jones, but yes, go ahead.
Sheila Jones, right?
Sheila Jones.
Who anyway, her oldest daughter's name is Janelle, and so I see Janelle in the hall, and we're talking and whatnot, and the question comes up. She's like, "Was it you who tried to use me when I was a little girl to try to get dates from women?" I'm like, "No, that was Spencer." I'm like, I didn't need the help. No. But that was like the first question. It's like, which one was it, you or Spencer, that tried to use me when I was like a 3-year-old little like toddler to try to get dates from girls? I was like, no, that was totally Spencer.
Tried, succeeded.
Yes. I'm like, no, we went beyond like the dog. Like, no. You get a kid. That'll get you some dates.
Yeah. They're like, oh, is this your daughter? I'm like, no, it's my friends. I'm just babysitting. Oh, it's really cute. That's really nice. You're such a, loving person. I'm like, uh-huh. Phone number, please, right here.
Yeah, so anyway, good times. But anyway, to close that, we love the Boths, and our hearts do go out to them. So
very much so. Very much so. What else has been going on, Steve?
I've spent enough time on me. No, we went down to Starved Rock, had a great time. Waterfalls, spelunking, skipping rocks. We hiked around for like 4 or 5 hours, had a great time. Went to go see a Carlos Santana concert on Friday night at a music venue here in Chicago called Ravinia, which is like an outdoor music festival type of grounds, but it's very high end. So people go there and they bring their like makeshift little pop-up like tables and chairs, and it's very common to see like tablecloths and like, different kinds of cheeses on a plate with wine and candles. I mean, it's very high end.
Yeah, it's not Ozfest, is what you're saying.
No. But Carlos was in rare form. No, we went as an office outing, and it was just a really cool night. We actually, I really like the people that I work with, and that it's such a blessing that I don't think I take appreciate as much as I should. But we just got to hang out under the stars. It was a beautiful night, and we had it catered, so there was a bunch of food there, and we had our own kind of sectioned off area, and we had a great time just chatting it up, and so thanks to my friends at Hillco Real Estate for a fun night, and it was a great weekend. Cool. How was your weekend, man?
It's pretty good. Friday night, we moved server rooms for one of our clients, so we got to work a little late and stay extra, but we got it all done and did a lot of troubleshooting, which of course, if you know anything about IT, when you do like a big move like that, there's always things that aren't going to work just quite right come Monday morning. So I spent a lot of my time today running around fixing small things. Like we retired an old server that had a lot of printers attached to it. And so while we had the printers installed on the new server, when people logged in today, their printers were still pointing to the old server, and so they couldn't print anything. So we had to go around and remove old connections and reinstall new connections, and that took quite a while. But
are there any dot matrix printers still attached?
There is no. We do have an old plotter for this one client, but
really?
They do these big, huge like printouts that they need a plotter for. Anyway, so that we did that, and then Saturday night, I actually had a poker night with a lot of my coworkers. My boss had it at his house. It was like our company and some like former coworkers and some friends of his and some of like his wife's coworkers all came over to play some Texas Hold'em poker and just have a good time. But what I got to do that was extra special this time was I made four deep dish stuffed Chicago style pizzas that
nice.
I made the dough myself. I made the sauce myself, ingredients, put it all together, baked these things. And let me just tell you, I love a good pizza. I love a good Chicago deep dish stuffed pizza. And everyone there was just raving about it. And like this one guy's like, I went to college just outside of Chicago. It's like, this is better than anything I had back there. And I was like, wow, thanks. And my boss was like, you know what? You talk a big game. You've been talking a big game for months and months and months about, your pizza making skills. He goes like, and you backed it up. He's like, this is amazing. Wow. And I was like,
That's
thanks.
awesome.
I appreciate it. And then his wife told him, she's like, you need to tell Spencer when you see him on Monday that was the best pizza that I've had in my life.
Holy crap.
I heard this and was just like, okay, now I'm starting to feel like a little like self-conscious about this. I'm like, thanks. I just made my own recipe that I've, been making for years now and whatnot. And it's just, it's just pizza, it's good. I'll admit that it's good, but I like deep dish stuffed crust style, big thick pizza. You have to use a fork to eat. But I made 4 of them and they were big monsters. I mean, huge.
Dang.
And
Did you get reimbursed for the? I mean, they're probably expensive to make, aren't they?
Yes. So we did a thing where like the buy-in to play poker was like $10, but if you were going to come over and have dinner, then it was $20. And so,
nice.
I got about like $50 back, which pretty much covered most of the toppings. I think like the total came out to be about like $70 for all the stuff to make the pizzas, but I didn't put in $10 for the food because the money was going to come back to me anyway.
Oh, right.
And then I cut off a little bit because we still had some extra toppings and some extra cheese at home, and the cheese is like one of the more expensive parts. Mm-hmm. So I was like, let's call it $50 and call it good. And my boss was like, yeah, sounds great. So made some good pizzas.
So with Jason sending over a custard to you, I think that one good turn deserves another. Man, puff, puff, give. Man, puff, puff, give.
Here's the deal. When I come out for my high school reunion...
Bring the pan!
I'm not going to travel the pan. But we will buy a pan ahead of time and have it shipped to your house. That way I can show you how to make this, and then you can then impress friends and family back home.
Seriously, man.
And be like, don't go to Giordano's, come to the Maduras.
You're like taking it through the metal detector. Ding, ding, ding. You're like, this thing sets it off, huh? Who'd have thunk?
I'm like, this tool is just to grip deep dish pans, I promise. I know it looks like a nutcracker, but I mean, I guess you could use that for that. But
I'm taking over the plane. Do what he says. Yeah. Do what he says.
Anyway, I'll give you my recipe. I'll show you how to do it.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. It's really funny, actually, you mentioned that, because I actually got, my wife and I think I've mentioned this a few times, do a lot of like these market studies. And I got one just out of the blue, and I've been getting a ton lately, which is, I guess, in the right demographic or something. I don't know. But for pizzas. So I went to this thing like 2-3 days ago, and I did this. They had like 7 or 8 pizzas. It was a focus group. There was a double-sided mirror and all the rest, and I can't tell anything more about it, but they had like 6 pizzas, and we had to try them all, and I get paid $270 just for trying pizzas.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
I like that. I need to sign me up for that job.
Yeah.
To do on the side. Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to say real quick was a little while ago, I placed an order for some Dungeons and Dragons manuals, the player handbook, the monster manual, and the DM, the Dungeon Master manual. Mm-hmm. And those arrived this weekend. So I've been watching a bunch of videos on Dungeons and Dragons because I think I've told you guys that I want to try this. I want to play, and I found some other people online that said they were interested and like to play. So I'm trying to see if we can maybe put together a play night sometime here coming up. And I found a website where I think we can host it, and through Google Hangouts we can join up together, which means we could actually record it and possibly put it up on a YouTube channel. And we could have a little gaming night and do a Fortress of Nerditude Dungeons and Dragons type of thing. So the details are still a little vague because I'm trying to make sure I know enough about it so I feel comfortable enough with it. But yeah, I ordered the manuals and I got some information. I've been watching YouTube videos on like learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's pretty darn cool, I must admit.
Make some pizzas. I'm sure you'll have a great turnout.
Yeah, here's pizzas that I made for myself, and you're online, so here it is. You can see it. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah. But anyway, work's going good. Family's doing well. It was a good, busy weekend, but all is well and right with the world, and we are back here once again in the Fortress of Nerditude.
Yeah, man. Well, very cool. Well, how about we get to your favorite part of the show and mine, a little bit of Rebel Intelligence.
Let's do it. I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
Okay, Steve, Rebel Intelligence. You know what? As a bald man, there was a story that I saw this week that I flagged that I thought you might be interested in. So, of course, you know Chris Hemsworth as Thor, right? In the Avengers and the Thor movies. Well,
right.
he has said that he's actually really excited for the upcoming Thor Ragnarok and was really excited to get the shorter haircut. And we've talked about it. We've seen the trailer. He's got just kind of like what looks like just kind of like a normal man's haircut, just kind of, short. Said he was just tired of wearing the wig, wanted to get away from those big, long, blonde locks that he had, because it said that it gave him an opportunity as an actor to feel like his character is changing a little bit, give him a chance to maybe stretch his thespian chops a little bit more and get kind of a different perspective on the character, which you got to think, if you're doing a big franchise like this, right? I mean, he's done 2 Thor movies. He's done 2 Avengers movies. He's going to be in this 3rd Thor movie. Plus, he also had a little small cameo in the end of Doctor Strange.
Right.
So, he's been playing this character for a little while. Maybe a time to shake it up a little bit, give him something new so he can kind of keep it fresh so he doesn't kind of have, that kind of character fatigue that could set in for an actor who's done the same thing for, forever.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. But for a man who's lost most of his hair and, I get that. It's a fresh perspective one day when you wake up and you say, look at me. I'm bald. I'm beautiful. That's just,
think of
just
all the
you
shampoo
say.
I save, all the money I save on shampoo.
Woohoo! That's right. I haven't bought shampoo in darn near 20 years now.
That's cool. So I wanted to talk about a few things, and I'll go in some sequential order here. So James Cameron, who I've read a little bit about him in preparation for the podcast, and he's actually kind of amazing. I mean, not just that he changed and revolutionized the filmmaking industry, and has the industry had to develop new technology just to keep up with him and what he wanted to do in his films. But
Sure.
just his dedication to films is absolutely amazing. So the first thing I want to talk about is with the bringing back of Terminator 2 to theaters. I read an article that he tried to keep himself from changing too much, right? He didn't want to go back and second guess himself, even though he is a perfectionist in every sense of the word.
He didn't want to go all George Lucas on his old films.
Exactly. We're going to change everything but the title sequence. Yeah, so for the action film, he told Entertainment Tonight that, while he's changed as an artist, which I think is really kind of a wise and a grounded thing to say. He said, I would never want to go back and second guess myself as to what I was thinking then, right? So he says, let that be that, and let any future things be, So he went back, and the only thing that he really wanted to change from it was to the attentive viewer. There's a famous canal chase scene through the canals of L.A. when the T-1000 dive bombs a tow truck into the canal, off the ledge, off the overpass, and the windshield falls out. Only actually, no, it doesn't, because in the next shot, it's in, and and it stays for the rest of the sequence.
That's a continuity error. Yeah,
just a bit of continuity. And so Cameron says, it's always bugged me. He's anytime I see it, just this glaring error every time I look at the film, and has brought it up several times over different festivals over the years. And so in the new version, it's digitally been removed for the future scenes. So,
interesting. So you won't see the windshield fall out. That way, the continuity still is in place.
Exactly. And there are a few other things, but we won't get into that.
Very minor small things.
Very minor small things, possibly pornographic in some nature. But yes, yeah, we won't get into those. So, but the other thing that I wanted to mention, which is kind of cool, is speaking of Cameron, is that for Aquaman, the director for Aquaman talked about how difficult and challenging it is. That water has proven, which it goes without saying, I guess, has proven to be the biggest challenge, I guess, in making the film.
What?
Yes.
You're kidding me. Water's a problem trying to film a movie underwater?
Well, yeah, right, exactly, and you would imagine such.
What?
The actor actually almost died. No, I'm kidding. But it actually referenced in this article how when James Cameron made The Abyss, that he actually almost drowned.
Great movie, by the way.
Which is a fantastic movie, right? I love that movie. And so I clicked on it and I read this entire article in Time Life about how they spent like 15 to 18 hours a day underwater, about 30 feet underwater, under heavy rigs, and they lost like a few rats because the rats had died. They actually had a doctor who was, on set to make sure that people were, okay. And as the crew emerged during breaks, they had to get in like these plastic hot tubs. They would be chilly and clammy. They were having a hard time. They were getting the bends. And
wow.
Cameron himself had to like decompress. So he had to sit at like 10 feet for like an hour at the end of the shooting day, and he was so like dedicated that he would actually had a monitor that would be lowered down so that he could watch film while he was sitting there decompressing, and he had a telephone piped into his helmet so he could talk to like Fox executives while he was like decompressing. And everybody's like, this guy is freaking like amazing.
Well, you think about like in today's day and age, there's so much digital. Like you look at it and you go, yeah, you could just probably do a lot of the water effects, CGI, but like to know, like, no, they were down there for like 15, 18 hours shooting and like having to sit there and decompress for hours and all that kind of stuff. And like they still, like James Cameron is still working. That's pretty dang impressive. Like,
oh yeah,
a lot of respect.
He had an entire like underwater like station built so that the crew could go and like recharge their oxygen. And apparently like early on the pH levels weren't right in the tanks, and so all like the crew members started like losing their hair and like changing colors and their skin started to burn. I'm like, what the freak? So they changed the clapboards. Wow. Instead of saying The Abyss, they changed it to say The Abuse.
Wow. Wow.
It's like, yikes. But a fantastic film, right? And like, you definitely
I really want to go watch that movie now.
Oh.
I love that movie. Love that movie.
Great movie.
Speaking of another movie I really have enjoyed, The Big Hero 6. Like, I've really enjoyed that movie. I try to get my kids to watch it more right now because my kids kind of go through a phase where they'll watch like one movie over and over and over and over again.
Tarzan.
Yeah, Tarzan. Inside Out and whatever it is, they'll go through phases. Right now they're in like watching Disney Junior TV shows, like so they watch Puppy Dog Pals and Mickey's Mouse Racers. Now what's it called? Anyway, they'll watch a bunch of these, like little shows, and they start watching some show called like Imagination Movers.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird. Like I look at these guys,
so
I'm like,
cheesy.
It's like, these guys look like creepers. It's weird. I'm sure they're nice. I'm sure they're not, creepers, but they look like creepers. Anyway, but Big Hero 6 is like, I loved that movie. Like, I've seen it a bunch because of the kids, but like, I can still watch it and like, just enjoy it. There's something about it that's, it almost feels like timeless. Kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Like, I've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark hundreds of times. But if I flip on a TV channel or a movie channel and like that's already on, like I will stop. And if I stop for more than 30 seconds, I'll watch it till the end because I just love that movie. But we talked about it that Big Hero 6 is going to come to TV and it's going to come to Disney's XD channel. And they've now said that they're announcing that it's coming in November. So while we got a little brief glimpse of it at the D23 Expo a few weeks back, they're now saying that it's going to be coming in November, and they're not really kind of given a date other than just briefly saying in November sometime. Nothing a little more concrete than that. But I tell you what, if this show is anything like the movie, I am on board. I will watch the heck out of that show.
Well, and as you kind of steer your children into their media consumption, you'll be like, nah, let's change it. Let's watch this instead.
Right. So something else from the House of Mouse. Even though this is, Lucasfilm and Star Wars, big kind of news coming out right now about The Last Jedi, which comes out in December.
Right.
They're saying that, you remember in The Force Awakens, like, we see Rey and, like, we see her getting abandoned on Jakku as a kid, right? And, like, you don't really get to see her parents. And that's been something that everyone's been asking about, like, who are her parents? Who are her parents? We want to know more. Well, the director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, says that basically we're going to find out a lot more about who her parents are. And not because it's just important that, like, fans want to know, but, like, it's important for her character. Like, her character stayed on that planet thinking her parents are going to come back. So, like, why her parents left her and where her parents are and maybe who her parents are, because they left her at really an early age and she might not, really have strong memories of them. Like, that's important to her character. And so he was saying, like, basically, like, for her character to go forward, she's going to want to find out this, but they're not going to go back into the past to figure it out. They're going to go forward in the future and the story's going to keep moving along, which is kind of good because I don't want to see a whole bunch of flashbacks and, like, half the movie be flashbacks about, like, who her parents are, right?
Right.
I mean, but if it's interesting though that, like, her parents may somehow come back into play down the road as maybe protagonists or maybe even antagonists in the film, like, who knows what could happen. I mean, obviously, like, look at it from Empire Strikes Back, right? We didn't know anything more than Luke's father died during the rebellion, was a fighter pilot and a great Jedi, and we hear that from Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope, but then going forward with the story, like, then we get the big reveal on Luke's parentage, and that, like, helps, like, really drive the narrative of that story further along, and it's not like going back into in flashbacks. So if it's something that's kind of built that same way, I think that would be perfect.
Yeah, I think that I agree. And are you totally stoked about December? My gosh,
dude, I can't wait.
That's probably the biggest thing. I mean, that and Stranger Things in October, of course.
Yeah, end of October. Yep. Yeah. So here's the thing though. Like, I'm looking at the calendar dates because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, The Last Jedi releases December 15th. And so that's like a day after Charlie turns 5, and it's about a week, 9 days maybe before we're going to leave to go to Montana. And in Montana, when we go up to visit our in-laws, there isn't, well, I guess that's incorrect. There hadn't been in the past, in some past years when we've gone up, there hasn't been a movie theater in town. So, like, we'd have to drive like 45 minutes over the border into North Dakota to go see a movie if we all wanted to go together, as a family. And so I'm wanting to make sure that I have plenty of time to see Star Wars here, where I've got like 3 movie theaters within 5 minutes of my house.
Right.
That have assigned seating and all the amenities, and I don't have to drive into another state. So I want to make sure that, like, I have a chance to see that here before I go up there, because they do have a theater now in their town that reopened, but, like, it's a small theater. It's kind of like similar to, like, the old State Theater, in our hometown. So I would rather see that. Which by today's
standards would be like, you might as well sit in an overturned milk crate and be looking through a knot hole in a fence through the.
Right. Anyway,
yes.
So yeah, December can't come fast enough.
Yeah, very cool. So, DuckTales. The legendary DuckTales theme song, right? Actually, kind of a funny thing. So I read an article this week about the theme song, which, as we all know, like Big Hero 6, has been kind of remade and is coming back to
the first
TV.
episode just aired this Sunday.
Oh, did it really? I thought it was next Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Have you seen it?
I haven't. Well, we tried watching it with the kids tonight a little bit. We use the Disney XD app on our Apple TV to try to watch it. And Jackson's been sick. He's got a fever. He's been running a fever for like 2 days now. The doctor says he's got the startup bronchitis, so he's on some medicine. So he was kind of whiny. He was just laying down. He's like, Daddy, I don't like this. I'm like, okay, buddy.
It's the drugs talking.
Yeah, I was like, trust me. I'm like, this looks like it could be good. So we watched maybe the first like 5 minutes of it.
Okay.
And then he was whining. I was like, we'll indulge him since he's sick this time.
So it's written by a guy named Mark Mueller, and he, in an article by, I think, Vanity Fair, he was talking about how he had just finished working in LA. He was working in LA and recently got his first hit writing the song Nothing at All for Heart. And when he submitted this little ditty to Disney in the spring of 1986, he wrote it in like 45 minutes. Wow. And added the famous woos as just realizing that he left some gaps in the chorus.
just filler.
Which is really how scatting came to be. Like, I don't really know the words, skittle about to dow,
Right.
And guess how much he was paid to write this now famous.
I don't know, maybe like $5,000.
Not even. Disney was cheap then, like it's cheap now. $1,250 by today's standard.
Wow.
$2,700, which seems a pretty small price to pay for a song that's been stuck in my head since I was 7.
Right.
So anyway, though.
So let me ask you this though,
yeah,
does he get any like sort of royalties or anything?
He does, actually. That's a good question. He does. He gets royalties, and not enough to fill a swimming pool full of gold coins. But yeah, he gets
Right.
royalties from the old, and then he will get some updates on the classic reboot with the new show coming out. So what's interesting though that I think is kind of funny is like it was written 45 minutes. It's this classic song. I mean, it's not it's not going to win any Grammys or anything, but you think about some classic songs, and what always comes to mind is like Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin, how it is said that like Robert Plant, when he came to, I think he was, I don't know, they were hanging out in Headley Grange, which is someplace in England, and he basically just like sat by a fire one night and spontaneously just started writing this. And Jimmy Page was like, yeah, he just like sat down and wrote it, and I put on some guitar riffs with it. It's like some of the great things just come,
Well, it's like, the song Dude Looks Like a Lady by Aerosmith?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, Steven Tyler said that they needed, like, I'm trying to remember.
They were
opening
somebody was opening for them.
Yeah, someone was opening for them. Yeah, and, like, they felt like they needed, like, one more song or something, and they sat down and wrote it in, like, 10 or 15 minutes. But, like, if you listen to the song, you're like, yep, there's not a lot to it. Right. But that song is like became really, really hugely popular. And like, I think everyone, even if you're not an Aerosmith fan, you've heard that song somewhere and
right.
that song.
Now, my comments, of course, are not to compare like Stairway to Heaven, which is always like one of the top 10 rock songs ever made, and
to
possibly the top 5
DuckTales theme song.
To DuckTales. But please, Super Friends, don't hang me up by my toenails. I'm just saying that sometimes greatness can come in quick packages. So
yeah, absolutely. That is really cool, though. I like that. I like hearing stories like that. The little like things that like, because that song is like, I don't know, like synonymous with my childhood. I feel like.
Yep.
It's been around forever, and to know that it was written in like 45 minutes, and like this guy got paid peanuts for it. I'm like, man, too bad he doesn't get royalties for like every time in my head. I'm like, life's like an airplane in Duckburg, because he'd be making like millions of dollars
just off what's in your head. My gosh.
Yeah. The last thing I have. So Walking Dead, we know, is a huge show, right? It's been big business for AMC.
Yep.
And the creator, Robert Kirkman, actually has now signed a deal with Amazon, and he's basically going to be leaving AMC. He announced this move that he's going to go to Amazon. It's basically like his company Skybound, which is kind of the company that's done like some of the Walking Dead stuff, but any future projects that are going to be developed and go to Amazon. So we can just assume they're going to be on Amazon Prime Video to watch. And so, he said that he kind of felt like that going to Amazon was a perfect home for him. It gives them some some opportunities to do some other things and to strive to tell the best possible stories in unique and creative ways and to break new ground. And you know what? I mean, we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing a lot of people, a lot of companies that are going to Amazon to do something. I mean, just this last year, there was an Oscar nomination for like Best Picture, and it wasn't like Fox or it wasn't like Warner Brothers. It was freaking Amazon.
Right.
And so, you know, we're in a new kind of era where video now and entertainment is branching out, and some of these big tech companies now are gobbling up, creators and content. And that's just something that I think we're going to have to kind of get used to.
Well, there's just so much like fragmentation and just schisms of where people consume media and how they get it. I mean, everything from, rattle them off: Hulu and Amazon, Amazon Prime,
Netflix,
YouTube.
Yep, all that.
And I think this is obviously just the beginning. I think you're right. Like these tech companies that have already kind of the foundation laid. Maybe they're not making the content, but they're the ones that are feeding it to us.
Yeah. So I don't know what this is going to mean for the rest of The Walking Dead.
I was going to say, does that stick with AMC?
I think so. I mean, I didn't see the contracts or anything, but my guess is, when you sign on to start a big show like that company has, first rights to everything. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Last thing I have, and this isn't like a Rebel Intelligence story that we have per se, but I was taking a closer look this last week at the Justice League trailer, and there's a shot of the Justice League where you see Aquaman and Wonder Woman and the Flash and Cyborg all kind of standing on some sort of like steps or stairway, like it's kind of like outside.
Seen it?
And,
yep.
Yeah, and I just had this thought, like if you look at Aquaman's outfit and Cyborg's and the Flash's, they all kind of remind me of Tony Stark's Iron Man outfit, his suit of armor. Like all three of the men there, because Wonder Woman's not so much, but a little bit. But like they have kind of like these like shoulder pads that kind of look like they're pieces of armor, and then like the legs look kind of like leg plating, and just I don't know. I just looked at it and went, man, maybe I'm just nostalgia for looking at like Barry Allen's version of the Flash on the CW show, The Flash.
Right.
His outfit, and I don't know. I don't want Aquaman in the green and the orange. Like he looks like he's University of Miami swimmer. But I don't know. I looked at all three of the men in that shot, and I went, just looks very similar to kind of like the structure and the build of like one of Iron Man's outfits, his armor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just it was kind of a weird moment. I was like, yeah, too similar. It just, I don't know. In that one shot, they all looked like they were, just slap a different color coat of paint on them and a different symbol, and you're good to go.
Well, imitation is the best form of flattery. So,
isn't imitation's the sincerest form of flattery?
Did you just imitate me? Did you just imitate what I just said?
I ain't flattering you, I tell you that.
But I think all kind of superhero garb has kind of gone that way, right? I think that Marvel has created kind of the barometer by which all others are measured.
Lately, sure,
that, yeah. You see a lot of similarities, I think, and it's kind of this new look. I don't know. But it's hard to like put words to it, but you know it when you see it.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a little aside, I saw that and I was like, man, I don't know what's up with that.
Yep.
Anyway, last week on the podcast, we had a conversation, and we kind of talked about this idea of Hollywood with the movies have been rebooting movies for a long time and whatnot, but like it seems like now TV shows are like spinning out of control with how many TV shows are being rebooted. And so we asked our super friends if they were to reboot shows, because obviously they're going to be doing this for a while. It's just a guess. What TV shows would you want to see rebooted? And we got some answers, and so we'd like to read those at this time. I'm going to start with the email. First off, let's just jump right to Peter Christensen. It says, Dear Nerds, rapid fire feedback. 1. UHF does not hold up well. Treasure the memory, don't try to relive it. 2.
Thank you.
There was a remake of Thundercats in 2011 that was pretty good. So we need to go check that out, Steve.
I'm making notes.
It says 3, don't be fooled. Caleb Albers wasn't calling you Superman. He was threatening to turn you into the Spin Doctors when he said he'd put kryptonite in your pocket. yeah, I like that little.
I like
little
that reference. Sheet. Nice reference, Peter.
It says, for question of the week, I would remake the TV show Jericho. Shout out to Mr. Steve Madura for introducing me to this show, which we watched on my lunch tray-sized laptop on the commuter train. It was a show from 2006 about people in a small town in Kansas dealing with the isolation and fears after an unexplained nuclear attack on the United States. It was a good show, but it was early in the gritty realism era, and it only lasted 1.5 seasons. A remake now, with a bigger budget and a better understanding of today's taste of drama, could be very entertaining. Keep it up, Peter Christensen.
That is a freaking
love Jericho. I loved that show.
Yeah, wasn't that Sly Ulrich or Skeet? He's got a weird name. Skeet Ulrich.
Yeah, Skeet Ulrich.
Ulrich, yeah. That was a fantastic show.
Yeah, I loved that show.
So a quick story. So I remember there was a time I was watching it by myself on the train, and there's a part where this girl is on a bus, and the bus gets hit or something like that from I don't know what happens, but she gets a pen lodged in her throat, and the main character has to pull it out, and I got so it was so visually that I actually almost passed out on the train. And I saw somebody, I was like, and I saw somebody I knew, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I don't even know." And they're like, "You better just stay down."
That's funny.
That's a fantastic show, though.
It was a great show. It was a great show. But he's right. It was a little early in the kind of the gritty realism era. Like if that show was coming out now, I think it would probably do fine. If it came out, 5 years ago, it'd probably do fine. But 2006, I mean, that was 11 years ago now. So,
well, and the grit factor probably would be elevated, right? Instead of getting a pen in her trachea, she probably would have had her jugular totally ripped. Who knows what? Well,
I mean, just you think about what they show on The Walking Dead.
Oh,
right?
Gosh, yeah.
So, if they were to do this now, a lot of that stuff would seem a little tamer, but they'd probably be able to tell some really good story with it. And
that was great storytelling, though. Fantastic.
Anyway, I like that. Moving on, let's go over to the Twitters, shall we?
Yes.
Over on Twitter,
the twits.
We asked the question, and Seth Roy at Seth Joseph Roy says that 70s show.
Huh.
So he'd like to see a reboot of that. I wasn't really a big watcher of the that 70s show, but every time I did watch it, it was pretty funny. There was always a few characters that I really enjoyed, and I thought they were written well, and it was a humorous show. Going on, the Geeky Nerd at dspin67 says All in the Family would be interesting. There were FCC boundaries back in the 70s. Today, it says it would be open season on our president.
Based on what has happened in recent events, I don't know if that would play so well.
Yeah. The thing is, that's what I wonder, too. There's... And he does kind of go on to say this, he says... later he was kind of saying, says some shows kind of had their run that they worked for a specific audience during a specific decade. He says Knight Rider proved that theory, because if you remember, they did try to reboot Knight Rider maybe a decade ago or so, and it was pretty bad. But you know what? He does bring a good point that certain shows work in certain eras, right? I mean, having a show where it's just about a family kind of all sitting down together and having, when he was saying All in the Family, having discussions about, race, the way they did, or, some of the things they'd say, that would not play on TV today. I mean, it'd have to, and I think even you talked about this, Steve, just comedies where it's just focusing on a family sitting around on their couch a lot, just doesn't play today. I think the market and people's interests and tastes for drama and storytelling have moved on, and like you just couldn't, you couldn't have your main character where all he does is like sit in his chair and then like get up and walk into the kitchen and then come back and sit down. Like I don't think you could do that.
No.
So
no, and you think about things like that, or Sanford and Son, and some of the jokes.
Yeah,
different time.
Yeah,
different time.
Yeah, definitely a different time, and I think we're okay not going back to that time. We don't need to relive that one. Jumping over to Facebook, Caleb Albers says, "I'd like to see a reboot of Dukes of Hazzard back on the air, but I'd have it be a really good reboot, not like that crap movie they had in 2005. Hey, I mean, it did have Jessica Simpson. And she was pretty. She was pretty good looking back then.
Nick Lachey, what's up, y'all?
I could skip the rest of it. Anyway, he says, of course they'd have to bring back the original Dukes every once in a while. I think it'd even be cool to have Catherine Bach back playing the Uncle Jesse role to whoever the new Dukes would be. That show was absolutely perfect, and if done right, it would make for some really good TV today. A couple other shows I think they could bring back would be Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The League, Mork and Mindy, and Knight Rider. Those would be great to see with how far technology has come. Now, we did just say that they did try the Knight Rider thing, and it did bomb. And Mork and Mindy, like, that was a funny show.
Yeah.
But you can't do it without Robin.
I was going to say, Robin Williams made that show. That's
right.
It was built around him.
Right. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, though, they could replace Sarah Michelle Gellar, and they could do that show again. I mean, that's just my personal thought on that. I know my mother will hear this at some point and she'll, want to smack me around because it's like one of her favorite shows. But I mean, come on, Sarah Michelle Gellar. I mean, she's a good actress, but I think they could find someone who would do just as good a job. Yeah. He says, P.S. to the nerds, count me in. Now, he's referencing probably our invitation for him to come on the podcast. He says, my buddy and I have been talking about doing a podcast, and I'd be interested to see how the pros do it. Well, if you join us, you're not going to be with pros, but we appreciate the compliment all the same. And then he says to Peter Christensen, I will get you back one day. I just need to find something that will blow your mind. So good luck with that. Anyway, Super Friends, we love hearing from you. We love the participation. We love it when you answer questions. And I really did have fun last episode, Steve, where we answered questions.
Yeah,
so
that
maybe,
was awesome.
Maybe we need to mix it up a little bit more because I did really have a lot of fun doing that. Now, once again, always, guys, every week we will put out a question, and maybe the question will be to ask you to give us questions. But you can always respond to us on Twitter at FordofNerd, or you can respond to us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/FordofNerd, or email fordofnerd@gmail.com. Steve, our Super Friends have been doing a good job. They've been finding us some new Super Friends, but we're always on the hunt for more Super Friends because we like interacting with people, and we like to feel that, we're trying to spread this podcast as far and wide as we can. So maybe one day a young nerdling out there will grow up to be a Super Friend. How can our Super Friends help us do that?
Super Friends, rate us on iTunes so the Fortress of Nerditude isn't as hard to obtain as Spencer's extra crispy recipe of herbs and spices that he bakes into each delicious Chicago deep dish pizza.
Well, it is a family secret.
That's right. Many generations.
Many generations. So, Steve, this week, well, I guess kind of week and a half-ish, something big was announced, and we were kind of talking about this a little bit when we were talking about Robert Kirkman leaving AMC and going over to Amazon. So, we've kind of talked about this before, that there's just a lot of places right now, the fracturing of media conglomerates of where content can be viewed and seen and listened to and heard. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've talked recently about the CBS All Access paywall for the new Star Trek Discovery and my aversion to paying for that for one show. But there was some really big news this week. You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about Disney.
Yeah, Disney
Jumping
and Netflix.
ship.
Yeah, so Disney's leaving Netflix. Now, not right away, so people don't out there like totally panic if you're hearing this for the first time. But they said, I think that they're looking to pull all their content by 2019. Like all their like animated movies and any new content they're looking to take by 2019. Now, gut reaction just on that news alone without going any further, what are your thoughts?
I just think that's a lot of content. I mean, they own a lot of different properties, and I think that it'll be a jolt to Netflix, and I don't see many other studios being able to do that, or many other brands being able to do that, because I just think they have such a foothold and they own so much.
Yeah, the House of Mouse is large. I mean,
right.
Disney, because think about it just for a second, right? You've got Disney and all what falls under the umbrella of the Disney, like movies and television shows, all the animation, right? Then they own Pixar.
Right.
And so everything that's Pixar. They own Lucasfilm. That means Star Wars, right? And that's a huge franchise, a big moneymaker. They own Marvel Studios. So they have all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, that's just right there alone. Marvel, Lucasfilm, Pixar. I mean, those three are behemoths, monsters. But then they also have Disney years ago ran, kind of spun off Touchstone Pictures, right? So they could do other movies that maybe had more adult themes and adult content. They could do rated R movies, but it was still owned by Disney.
Right.
So they've got, all these other venues and things that are going on and TV shows. And like we said, DuckTales is coming back and Big Hero 6 is becoming a thing now on TV.
Well, and don't forget,
they
have the vault as well.
Yeah.
And who knows what treasure troves are in there. You always hear of the vault coming out of the vault.
Right. So, gut check for me. I look at this and I say, it's interesting because I kind of question it a little bit. It's like, why wouldn't they just stay where they are? Because I think they just made a pretty big deal with Netflix to host a lot of the new Disney movies, because it seems like Disney movies now are hitting Netflix a lot faster than they used to.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Moana went out very fast.
Yes.
Jungle Book was there, within a month of it, being out of theaters.
Right.
It's crazy.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. Is this a good deal for Netflix? Is this a good deal for Disney?
I think, as we talked about earlier, that there is going to be continual, and we're only seeing the beginnings of this, schisms of just different places where people are getting their content. Will this be a good thing for Disney? In the end, I'm sure it will. If they can control that, they can charge what they want and have, a premium subscription-based streaming service that puts money in their own pocket. But really, what I think I care about most, selfishly, and possibly our super friends do as well, is how does this affect us? Having one place or a few places where you can get a lot of different content, it's obviously more cost effective. I mean, that's the reason that people, I think, originally went to a service like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime, right? They didn't need to be tethered to a cable service with,
right,
75 to 80% of things they didn't care about or didn't watch, or even more, and really only cared about a few things. We are now a people that consume media how we want it and on our own terms and when we want it and all the rest. And I think that just having so many different places that we have to go now becomes cumbersome and costly and annoying.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's a really good point. I mean, I saw people on Facebook saying, well, I'm not gonna, go and subscribe to Disney's service just for the Disney movies. It's a nice thing. A lot of people are going to be outraged, and you're going to get a lot of, emotions, right up front. And
right.
And I was kind of trying to look at that and say, well, we watch some of the Disney movies and the content on there. But you look at it and you say, okay, well, let's assume, you can look at this a bunch of different ways, but let's say Moana comes out, right? And so you want to buy Moana on iTunes or Google Play or whatever, and it's like $20 for the movie. okay, so you buy it and it's, a one-time fee and you own that one movie. So let's say you end up buying a movie every month of the year, right? Because you're going to, your kids are going to cycle through it. They're going to watch it for maybe a month straight, and then they're going to want to go on to something else. So if you were buying a new Disney movie once a month, $20, you're going to spend like $240 over the course of the whole year. If Disney comes out and they only charge $10 a month, and the newer movies hit that service like a month or a month or two later, but they also have all their other movies that are on there and their, animated shorts and some of their TV shows and stuff, and it's only $10 a month. I mean, it's definitely cheaper to get that than it is to purchase a movie once a month. So right. It depends on like how you want to look at it, but for those people that, maybe are a little tighter on money and who don't want to fracture a bunch and, have a bunch of these different services, $10 a month for Netflix streaming when you were getting the Disney and now you're not, that's a loss, especially for people that are either A, big Disney fans, or B, have kids that are big Disney fans.
And do you know kind of the price point? I mean, is it going to be around a $10 a month charge?
They haven't said yet. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
But they haven't said yet. But here's the interesting thing. It's not just Disney that's doing, it's not just like the Disney cartoons and the movies and whatnot, because Disney also owns ESPN and they own ABC. ESPN's going to be branching out and creating its own subscription streaming service as well. So this was also announced at the same time. And I did a little digging, and it looks like Disney had went out and bought basically kind of like a digital streaming platform. And so like I was kind of having this kind of conversation with someone, or I mentioned this to someone, like if Disney spent all this money to buy this platform, like they could buy it once for one cost and then split it out, and ESPN could use it, the software development, the platform, True. And then Disney could use it all. And so like it could end up becoming a huge windfall for them. Plus, we don't have any kind of idea as like what it costs, what Disney like gets paid for distribution through Netflix. And I can't imagine, I imagine like their deal is lucrative, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But like on a per movie basis, like a per view basis, like it's got to be pretty small, I would think. But it all adds up, number of views, and that many users and subscribers. And so I think Disney's going to make their money back on this. I think that whatever they're spending for hosting of the data and the streaming and the platform that they purchased, I think they're going to make their money back. I really do. I don't see them losing their shirts on this sort of idea.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when Southwest kind of changed the airline industry when they started purchasing like oil refineries and things like that, and basically said, look, the number one cost for us that affect our profits, our margins, is fuel consumption, right? And so instead of buying it and being beholden to the suppliers and all these things, cut out the middleman. We'll do it ourselves. And so I see Disney is doing the same thing, and I think it's a smart move. And while it may not sit well with me and with others, because who wants to pay more? Who wants to have to go to 12 different places to watch a show or 2 shows or 3 shows that you like and follow some things? Will it make money for them? Yeah, I'm sure it will. And I'm sure while, like you said, their franchising or their distribution through Netflix was lucrative, I'm sure this is going to be much more so, and they can cut out the middleman. And then once they get a consumer base, they can probably tick up the price.
Yeah.
It's called capitalism.
And that's what Netflix did. I mean, Netflix streaming used to be $8 a month, and then they bumped it up to $10 a month, which is not a big deal, let's be honest. Right. But at the time, like, people were freaking out. But for millions of
subscribers, that's a lot of money for them.
Right, exactly. And you look at it, there's so many different services now. Like, Brita and I have been cord cutters at times, then we've gone back to cable, and then we've become cord cutters again. And the whole idea of cord cutting is, getting away from that big, subscription package, like you said, where you get 100 channels or 200 channels or 400 channels, and you really only watch, 4 or 5 tops.
Right.
but you're paying for all those others and you're helping subsidize those with your subscription. And now you can basically, cut out the middleman, cut out the cable, and like you can get like HBO on a subscription. CBS is rolling out theirs. You're going to be able to get ESPN and Disney through theirs. There's Stars, I said HBO, Showtime has one. You've got Amazon Prime, you've got Netflix, you've got Hulu. Just there's so many different avenues now. But the problem is, like, depending on like what you want, like some of those things can start like adding up pretty quick, and you say, oh well, this is only $10 a month, or this is only $15 a month, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm paying $45 to $60 a month in just all these separate individual things. And so, you may not be saving money cutting the cord if, you're purchasing all these different, like, streaming plans from different companies.
Well, I totally agree. I think that, just going back, the one of the other reasons why this is going to be successful for Disney is because, unlike CBS, that has a fairly limited, they have some shows, but it's I would say fairly limited in its scope and its breadth of content. And even maybe I'm sure the ESPN will do just fine as well.
Oh yeah.
But when you have something that's so specific to one user base and one type of content, you could struggle, right? And I don't think ESPN is going to struggle at all. But something like unto it, if it was like the bird watching channel, the streaming bird watching, nobody's going, what the freak is that? But when you have Disney, where you have, my kids watch Disney movies, and my youngest toddlers watch Disney Junior, and I watch Star Wars and Marvel, and
right.
They have such a stranglehold.
Yeah. Now it is interesting to note though that with this upcoming change with Netflix losing Disney, because like they said, like Toy Story 4 and Frozen 2 and some like the newer, bigger movies that are coming out are not gonna hit Netflix. They're gonna go straight to the Disney stuff. But like the Star Wars stuff, like Rogue One that just got posted on there, like The Last Jedi or whatever, like that stuff is still, and things like Marvel's Jessica Jones and Daredevil and the Defenders and Luke Cage and the Punisher that's coming up, like those things are looking like they probably are going to stay with Netflix because they're being produced by Netflix as well. And they're like in negotiations. So it's possible that they're not going to be pulling Star Wars and Marvel away from Netflix just yet. I mean, it still could happen.
Right.
But that's at least something, for those of us that are out there that, maybe don't need to watch Tarzan on Netflix because you already own it,
right?
Which is kind of the place we find ourselves in. We don't watch it a ton, but at least not for the Disney stuff. Yeah, Tarzan VHS right there, huh?
Right, look at that baby, huh? For those listening at home, I just pulled a VHS off my shelf.
No one uses VHS anymore.
Don't say no one.
I think I have maybe 2 VHS tapes, and they're like in the basement. I still have a bunch of DVDs, but we've been increasingly going all digital on the the movies.
My wife and I were cleaning up the basement. We're like, why do we even have these? I have not watched a DVD that we own, not one that I got from Redbox, but that we own in probably like 5 years. I've not gone through our library and be like, I'd like to watch The Count of Monte Cristo.
Right.
It's a fantastic film.
It's going digital. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
In your prophetic opinion, do you believe that CBS All Access will fail?
Yes, I do. And the reason is that I think now CBS does have some, I know they've had a history of having like a lot of like big comedy shows, like sitcoms.
Yeah.
I think CBS All Access is putting I think there's a lot of hope and a lot's riding on this Star Trek being big for them. And I don't see it being that way. I really don't. I may be completely wrong, but I don't see it being that big for them. I think the show looks interesting, but I've heard a lot of stuff that kind of makes me think that the show could struggle, and it could struggle to find an audience. And I think putting it behind a paywall is going to make them struggle even harder to find an audience. And so I do think that CBS All Access could potentially fail.
So under that argument, then, if you don't feel like the hook maybe is big enough for CBS to really draw an initial base of viewers and subscribers, could a Frozen 2 be, a big enough hook to kind of jumpstart a Disney streaming service?
Yes. I mean, you look at how big the movie Frozen was. I mean, every little girl in America was seeing that movie and singing those songs. Every little girl.
Oh yeah.
But you got to think like it's not, but that's the thing, it's not just that. And I think you pointed out earlier, it's that plus it's the vault. It's their old movie library and the Pixar movie libraries. They're going to be coming with that. And the Disney XD and the Disney shows and the Disney Junior shows.
Steamboat Mickey.
Yeah,
or Willie.
Steamboat Mickey. Steamboat Mickey. Yeah, Steamboat Willie. No, but it's all that old stuff, that could be coming out, and they could say, hey, this isn't, out of the vault, but you can, you can't buy this right now because it's in the vault, but you can only see it here on Disney's streaming service. And listen, Disney's a massive, massive, huge company, and they've got a lot of content. And I think there's going to be a lot of people, like if we didn't have, like, we're currently not cord cutters, we're back on the cable wagon right now, but like if we didn't have that, like we would be trying to figure out a way to, like maybe through Sling or something else, like get like Disney Junior, because our kids exclusively watch Disney Junior. I mean, they just do. And I think there's a lot of families out there that would not want to pay extra money for Disney stuff because they would feel like they're getting it now with their Netflix subscription. But like, if you were to look at it and say, well, because of our family and we have young kids, that most of the Netflix stuff we watch is Disney or children's, content, people may be inclined to just ditch Netflix and go over just to the Disney stuff.
Well, and so here's another question. So while the question has been raised, and I've read some things about it, kind of debating as to, who will fare better? Will Netflix fare better? Will Disney? And the answer, and I tend to agree with them, is neither, right? I think Netflix will be fine. They have invested significant amount of capital to
new content,
original content.
Yeah.
Stranger Things, award-winning films, Beasts of No Nations, and things of that nature. Disney is obviously going to be fine with the franchises of Star Wars and Marvel and all the rest. But one of the things that I read talked about how the companies that are poised to make the most profit and fare better in this entire kind of divide of services are, like you said, the tech giants. Companies like YouTube and Amazon and Facebook and Apple and even Snapchat to some lesser extent, because they can offer kind of a funnel whereby content gobblers can go to one place to kind of get all of this.
Yeah, they've got that platform already kind of in place. So yeah, I agree with you. And I agree with, that idea that there's going to be people that are going to benefit from it probably more than Netflix and Disney will.
Yeah. It's like years ago, I should have invested in a box company when I knew that Amazon was going crazy. Don't invest in Amazon. Invest in all the things that go into what Amazon does, right?
Right.
Dang it. Oh, well.
I would imagine they own a box company or two. Just saying.
Well, there's actually what's it called? It's Uline is a huge box company here in Illinois, and they have huge warehouses all built around Amazon Amazon distribution centers up in like Kenosha. They built this huge Star Destroyer style building that goes on forever. And there's like a huge Uline building right next door. And it just makes sense, right? It's not necessarily the company themselves, like the Disney and the Netflix. It's the companies that support what they do, right? Just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we need to find a big business that's about ready to go like gangbusters and then find what they need to support them and then come up with that company?
Yeah, man. Like I said, like a box company or like 3M who makes tape, right? Amazon needs a lot of tape.
It's true.
So, Well, very cool. So I guess to kind of round out the conversation, I don't know if the question of the week has to be this, and this is a yes or no question, so probably not, but obviously thoughts about this. I'd love to find out who of our super friends is planning on subscribing to this new Disney service when it comes full board, and kind of what their thoughts are, if they're up in arms, if they're grabbing pitchforks, axes, gonna storm the castle.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I'm curious too. Like, what do our super friends think? Are they for this? Are they against this? Like, and why? Why do they look at it one way or another? Is there something we're not looking at? I mean, let me ask you, Steve. Is this something that you think the Madura household would subscribe to?
Probably not. Just because, I don't know. I seem like we kind of get our content a little bit later. We don't need to be first. We're not the early adopters.
Sure.
Never have been. And so if we get things a little bit later or just from some other means, like my parents' Netflix account, we're fine with that.
So I look
this
at
isn't being recorded, is it?
Yeah, right. I look at it like this, like if we were to cut the cord and not be on cable, then maybe we would consider doing it because our kids watch a lot of Disney content. But right now, if we're staying the way we are, like with the Disney Channel and Disney XD and Disney Junior, which is really what they watch, right. I don't see the need to do that. But that's me, like where we're at. Now, if we were cord cutting again, because this doesn't happen for another 2 years or a year and a half, if we're cord cutting again, then maybe like we'd consider it, because the Netflix would be for, some of the kids would watch some stuff on Netflix, but like for all the Disney stuff, we'd want to be able to like let them watch something that they actually enjoy watching and want to watch. So for us, like, I guess it's going to depend on the situation, but I'd say if it is like it is now, probably not. But that's just us.
Right.
So,
right.
So let's do that, super friends. Let us know. What do you think? Where are you on this fence? Are you for? Are you against? Why? One way or the other? And let us know, and we will talk about that next week when we read your answers. Once again, you can hit us up on Twitter at FortofNerd, Facebook.com/FortofNerd, or the email fortofnerd@gmail.com. And Steve, happy birthday, man, once again.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thanks for the shirt, man. It fits like a glove. Look at that. It's a little cold in here, as you can see, but no, I'm just kidding. No, thank you. Thank you. And to all our friends everywhere, if you're having a birthday today, happy birthday to you as well.
May the force be with you. Always.